Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to Week 18, Game Day edition of JAKIB Pregame Show here on JAKIB Sports. A big Week 18 Tanner McKee edition of the season.
No. Tanner Manning.
Excuse me. Tanner McBrady, Tanner Manning, whatever you want to call him. Big Sills, how you doing on this game day, brother?
Absolutely awesome, man. What a great holiday week. What a great holiday time. And we all appreciate everybody coming aboard, especially this week. I mean, it's been absolutely fabulous. The network, the shows, everything all grew this week. I mean, the pre- and post-game show now, one of the most anticipated weekends. And I'll tell you why it's one of the most anticipated weekends, because we're going to find out on Sunday night, home field advantage on where it's going to lie between Minnesota and Detroit. We're going to get all the seeding on what's going to happen. Not really affecting the Eagles. We saw a little bit of that on Saturday, too. How about the Bengals, the way they put the wood out there? They got it done. Joe Burrow got banged up.
Get it done.
He did. He got banged up in that ball game. And a lot of guys, and by the way, Zay Flowers looks like he could be lost. And this goes to the argument we had all week about Saquon Barkley heading into this ball game on whether or not to play him or not. And again, they're in different situations, Zander. They had to play those guys. They had to win. This was something completely different to that when it comes to that great all-time record of Eric Dickerson's.
Did seeing that change your perspective or alter? Okay, I'm in the same opinion of you. That didn't change anything for me, but a lot of people did make something of it. Look, this is why you want to sit, guys, and I get it. Didn't change anything for me, but it was unfortunate to see him go down. That was a sloppy game. Both of those games yesterday were sloppy. That night game was real sloppy. So
I think the weather had a lot to do with that too, because it becomes really difficult, you know, when you're talking about handling a football like that, when you're 19 degrees, 18 degrees. But Zander, I think you said this a couple weeks ago. This is why you believe, and everyone believes now, that the Eagles are set up to really make a strong playoff run, because if you got to play winter months and you got to play in the cold, handing the football off and being a running football team, that's not an awful thing. If you saw some of the guys struggling last night, no question, man, that made you. I'll tell you something, though, dude, and I got to say this, and I don't mean to start the program off, but isn't what you saw with Lamar Jackson this year, with over 4,000 passing yards and over 40 touchdowns and almost 1,000 yards rushing, isn't that what you envisioned Jalen Hurts to look like this year with his weapons that he had? I mean, let's not forget something here. Derrick Henry had 1,900 yards rushing this year. He's only the first. He's the first player in NFL history to go over 1,500 yards 3 different years in his career. I mean, he had a big rushing year. He's leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. So don't give me that bullshit that you're telling me, well, it took away from the passing game. And let's be candid here. Zay Flowers and who? Dude, that tight end is really good. That Mark Andrews can catch. He is without a doubt a weapon. But Zander, I mean, isn't that what you envision Hurts to look like? Maybe not to that level, because he's a superstar and he is probably one of the greatest players ever to play in the game.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think, well, here's what I'll say to that. Lamar's in rarefied air, so I don't expect Hurts to look like that from a talent perspective, but I think the one thing that gets you close to those expectations is the roster and the talent around him, right? You surrounded him with players, you know, that are 2 top 10 receivers, one receiver that I think is top 3 in the league, and I don't think he's 3, by the way. I think he's up there at the top. So, and then you have a tight end, you have Saquon Barkley, you have the offensive line. So I don't think it's the player, because I think, like you said, Lamar is in rarefied air, kind of. I think he's, you know, a one-of-one type of guy, but we certainly have a lot of weapons here, and hopefully the Eagles can figure out how to use them all better. Speaking of those weapon sales, the Eagles did put out their inactives for the game today. It's good. It's going to be a little bit of a snooze fest, everybody, today. We're going to be watching Tanner Manning, as Sileo called him, in the game today. I'll read off the inactive list and show you guys what's going on with the inactive list. But a lot of guys out. Jalen Hurts is out. Saquon is out. Everybody's out. Big Stills. Devontae, AJ. I'll pull up the inactive list real quick so you can see. But that's where we're at. It's going to be a big backup game today.
Let me ask you this here, Judge. You're bringing that list up here. Is he out of concussion protocol, Jalen Hurts?
He has not been out. He has not yet been reported that he is out of concussion protocol. Now, the last time we heard any update on it was Friday, and he was not out of it on Friday.
Maybe John will be able to give us more insight when we see him today. Because I got to tell you, Zander, I mean, did you not see Burrow get – I saw Burrow get banged up last night. I've seen other guys get banged up. They put those guys right back in. Now, I didn't know you could manipulate a neurologist and the concussion protocol. I thought that was a strict. I'm not saying that you can make the proper science like John says. I'm saying this. Can you manipulate it and go, I'm going to keep him on here just because we're going to keep him on here when you're talking about something so delicate as somebody's brain? I mean, I don't know how that works and if you can manipulate that, because if that's the case, Andrew, I don't believe the concussion protocol. I mean, how can you sit there and keep a guy on that if he's
it's funny. And then you watch Joe Burrow get decked last night with his head drives into the turf, and then he's back in the game. It is kind of a weird. The whole thing is a little odd. And the other thing is, I would say is, why keep him in the protocol? Like, why not just get him back to practice and rest him like you're doing with everybody else? And John tells me there's nothing to be worried about here. He's going to be fine. He looked fine. He's been at the facility. I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for it. But 2 weeks, Sills, I mean, it was 12 days on Friday. So today will be 14 days now that Jalen, since he got that concussion. That's a long time to be in the protocol.
It is. I mean, like you said, hey, I'll tell you this, man. If after the football game, I don't hear him active and he's not activated on Monday, we got a problem here, man.
That's where I think the not panic, but that's where the real worry will come in. If you get into game prep for the playoff game upcoming next week and Jalen's still not on the field, we're going to have a big issue. But I would expect him to be out there. And we'll say, here's the list of inactives, by the way, everybody. The Eagles put this out there today. So you can see, it's basically everybody. I mean, it's basically everybody. You're looking at Jalen Hurts, Darius Slay, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Nakobe Dean, Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, Lane Johnson, and Mylotis are 2 tackles, Landon Dickerson, and Jalen Carter. So really all your best players right there. You got three of the 5 offensive linemen are out. Only 1 defensive lineman is out. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, both of your starting linebackers are out. And then obviously Darius Slay, who's a veteran cornerback, is out in this game. 2-star wide receivers and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So probably all of your best players, Big Sills.
Probably what you're going to get with the rest of them will be in a backup role. And, you'll get the other guys because I don't see Cam Jurgens on that list and I don't see Micaiah Becton on that list too. So what I would say is that you're probably going to get those guys in a reserve role because, like you said, you can't deactivate the entire team. What are you going to do? Dress 25 guys?
Exactly.
So that's completely impossible to do. So, what this is going to look like. Remember, this is the mentality of this game. The Giants are going to try to figure out who they want to go forward with. Guys are going to be fighting for their jobs. So like you said, this is going to be an awful, sloppy ball game. There's going to be a shitload of turnovers in this game. Why? Because you don't see guys with a lot of reps when they go into this football game. It's really going to resemble a preseason football game, and more so than anything, preseason 1, where you're going to get a lot of people that are going to – or maybe preseason 3, the final one, where you're getting guys – that you haven't seen all year. All that being said now, remember what the Eagles are doing. The Eagles did something, and I heard Nick Sirianni say this on Friday that I love. Their player development, man. They try to get their guys as much quality reps as they possibly can within reason during the week. I know Jeff Stoutland does that. So I don't think you're going to see a tremendous amount of mistakes in the O-line because those guys get quality reps as much as they possibly can during the week. I don't know if that is on the defensive side of the football. But I got to tell you, dude, those 2 backups that the Eagles have this year at defensive tackle, Ojimo and the other kid, Booker, I like those guys, man. And if I were them, I would take this opportunity to do this. I'll tell you what, I may not start here, but I'll tell you, I could start probably on 25 to 30% of the other teams in this league, and I'm going to go make some money here because those guys, I think they were contributors this year. Those backup guys were not quite Joseph Linville, and they were not quite Dominican Sue. But I got to tell you, man, they contributed this year. That kid Booker made an impact.
You're right. And the other thing there is, remember, Milton Williams is in a contract year.
Yep.
You can go out and also show the Eagles, forget other teams for a second. You guys want to move on from Milton Williams? You got the guy to replace him right here on your roster.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, they've been having a good year. Who else are you watching today? For me, I'm also watching the wide receiver cells because a lot's been made of Dotson. I know we don't use wide receiver 3 much, but you did trade this guy because you got 2 years out of him, right? You got Johnny Wilson. You got a nice let's see which one of these guys can show you that they're not a trash can. They can go out there, and if you need them to catch a ball, they can catch a ball. Who's going to earn that wide receiver 3 spot next year?
You know what you're going to look at, though, with Dotson in this? He's not going to be in the 3 hole in this game. He's most likely going to be in the 1 hole.
He can be the 1
in this game. So it's a different role than what he's played the entire year, where targets are going to be at a minimum when he goes into these games. He's going to be a primary target. So to what you said, we're going to see if that 3rd round pick is completely a flat out, no question, disaster for Howie Roseman this year. Because again, like you and I have been saying the last couple of weeks, dude, the guy you had on the roster a year ago is killing it in Washington right now. That was a roster mistake, in my opinion. This could be an asset mistake. You threw a 3rd rounder out, and you only went with him because he was higher on the board when he got drafted and said, well, this guy's a 1st rounder. He can't be that awful. Well, you put him in a 3rd role. He was in a 2 roll up in Washington. He was kind of decent. Now you're going to put him in the front row, and you're going to give him the majority of the targets in this game. I got to tell you, man, I'd like to see Dallas Goedert get some reps as you get ready for the postseason.
He wasn't on the inactive list.
I'd like to see some. I'd like to see some reps. I mean, like maybe a quarter just to get the rust off him, because Zander, I think they're going to need him, especially in the cold games. You're going to need that intermediate passing game if you're going to want to extend yourself into the playoffs. So I want to see a little bit of Goddard today.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. We'll have John McMullen joining live from Lincoln Financial Field in just a minute. So he's going to set to join us around noon, which just hit noon. So he'll be in just a second from the stadium. So looking forward to talking to John about the game today. Sills, any other player on that offense you're watching? I know Tanner McKee. I think a lot of people are excited for Tanner McKee. I'm pretty excited to see what he can do. But hey, he doesn't have AJ and Devontae. He doesn't have the starting O-line. It's not going to quite look like it did last week, where he had 2 touchdown passes and 3 throws.
I want to see Gainwell and I want to see Shipley. And I'd like to see what they're going to offer a little bit in this football game. It's a great opportunity. John McMullen has talked about this all the time, about the player development and at the reps that they get. I think one of the greatest things, and I just got through mentioning it, Zander, I think one of the greatest things that they do, and I heard Nick talking about it on Friday, was the fact that these guys try to do every single thing they can within a week and within reason to try to get these guys quality reps. Now you're going to get to be able to evaluate them. They really do a nice job. At least, have you ever noticed the offensive line? When you get Fred Johnson in there, or you have to put somebody else in there like a Tyler Steen, you don't see the fall off. Why? Because Jeff Stoutland gives these guys quality reps during the week. And you can't sustain that for an extended period of time, but you really don't see that drop off. And like we mentioned with Booker and Ojimo, hey man, those guys have been contributors this year. And I think that has a lot to do with player development.
Yeah, I think it's a good point by you. Speaking of John McMullen, he's live from Lincoln Financial Field, joining us now on the JAKIB Pregame Show here from the link. Johnny Mac, how you doing, my friend? Week 18, Tanner McKee Bowl, backup bowl. Johnny Mac, how you doing down there at the stadium?
Doing well. A little bit chilly, so nice day, but obviously the weather will play a part in it. But yeah, finally it is out of the bag. Anybody hoping the Eagles are resting their players? A lot of fans didn't want to believe us, but here we are. So finally, you're going to get to see the backup bowl, as you said.
Hey, John, are you excited to see Tanner Manning?
Yeah, I think, that'll be one of those things. I almost hope to see the big 4 touchdown performance from Tanner McKee, because I want to see that Tanner Manning hype. I want to see it from the fan base.
I'm not sure if it's coming without AJ, Devontae, and the starting of the line out there, Johnny Mac, but we'll see what Tanner can do with the Eagles backups. John, they did put out the inactive list. Anything surprise you on that? It was really all their best players is what it looked like to me. Jalen, Saquon, receivers, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen. Then you had Jalen Carter, your two linebackers on there, and Darius Slay.
Yeah, 11 guys are officially inactive. No surprises. Difficult. There's certain guys who have to be active because you have to address somebody. So you only have a 53-man roster, obviously, and two practice squad elevations. But no surprises. Obviously, I don't expect Cam Jurgens to play or Mekhi Becton to play, but got to have some people dressed just in case. So hopefully everything goes to plan. And, guys like Tanner McKee and Will Shipley and Thomas Booker, Moro Jomo, players you guys mentioned can play the whole game. And you don't have some of those issues.
Hey, John, do you expect to see any of Goddard? They activated him. Do you expect to see him get some reps, maybe a quarter or two of football? He's been out a long time. Do you expect him to see any reps?
Yeah, he's probably the most interesting story. So as pregame warmups start to ramp up, I'll see if I see him. But because as you mentioned, he could use some, snaps to get that rust off. And the second part of that is they only have two tight ends. So Greg Calcaterra, who they don't want to play either, to be honest, but they have to play him. And E.J. Jenkins are the only two tight ends beside Dallas Goedert. So somebody's got to play. And if you want to get them a few reps just to get that rust off, it might make some sense. But, if they rested them, it wouldn't shock me either. So it's one of those things. The goal was to get them ready for the postseason, and it'll certainly be ready for the playoffs. But yeah, go ahead.
Hey, John, let me throw this at him. Do you expect to see a lot of Bryce Huff and Felix Hunt in this game here? I mean, I don't know if you're going to put Nolan out there or if he's going to be in a backup role here. Should we look for those two guys on being the edge guys as they start this ball game?
Yeah, definitely Jalix. I think Bryce Huff has still got a rep limitation on him because of the wrist surgery. So certainly going to play, but I don't know if he's going to play the entire game. They elevated Chuck Harris. I think you're going to see a lot of Chuck Harris as well on the edge, just to get some of those reps sort of out of the way. But I do think, Bryce Huff is on a snap count, pitch count, so to speak. So I don't think he's going to be out there every play because of that wrist surgery. You'll see when he's out there, he's playing with a big sort of club on his hand. So one of those things where you want to be careful with it. But he'll play. Jalix will be the guy, I would imagine, that gets a lot of reps, and Chuck Harris as well.
John, any players you're focused on today or watching? Anything? I'm more thinking of players that have the potential to have an impact on the team in the future, if not an impact, a role. Any players piquing your interest today going into the game?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Obviously, it starts with Tanner Manning, the fourth Manning. No, I joke, but Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is an interesting player because of the contract that Zach Bowen's going to get. Can you believe in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. for an Eagles exec? Moro Jomo's a young player who has shown some signs. Can he take a step forward? Because you have some issues with Milton Williams and his contract, him out playing his projected contract, so that could be an issue down the road. Thomas Booker for the same reason. Inside, the young corners. Darius Slay is going to play forever. Kalen Ringo is going to get an opportunity to play cornerback. Eli Riggs, Isaiah Rodgers. So, the Eagles have a lot of depth at cornerback. Which one of those guys maybe do they think is going to be a potential long-term answer? Ringo probably the leader of the long-term answer clubhouse. And if he shows something, who knows from that perspective. Get some of these backup receivers involved. Jahan Dotson, talked about him a lot. Anaya Smith, is he going to return punts? Maybe that's a factor down the road as well. Johnny Wilson, and then Will Shipley. I think, this is Will Shipley's day, man. He might get 25 carries. So a lot of players that, people should be focused on as far as their potential long-term in Philadelphia.
How about this, John? You mentioned him, and it gives them a chance to look at him in a different role in Jahan Dotson, in that, he's in a 3-hole, and he's in a 3 role majority of the year, which you're going to have minimal targets sent to you. Now he's probably, unless I'm wrong here, he's probably going to be in the 1 hole here in this ball game, and he's going to be elevated to AJ's role here. Now you're going to get a true evaluation on what you're looking at with this player. Now it's going to be unfair, like you said. I mean, the components around him are going to be limited when it comes to the O-line, the quarterback, those guys not having a ton of reps, but he's going to get a volume of targets in this ball game, in the passing game. So you're going to get a better look at him maybe than any other time this year.
Yeah, at the bare minimum, he should get some traffic, and that to me. I mean, never gets involved, never gets any traffic. So we'll see. It might be 5-6 targets. What can he do with them? And that could bolster his confidence down the road, because remember, he's part of the offense on a given week. So, those certain guys, whether it's Grant Calcaterra at tight end, Nolan Smith, if he gets some snaps, those guys it's important for too. But with them, you're more concerned about getting them out as healthy as possible. With Jahan Dotson, yeah, he's got to build up some confidence, I would think.
Yeah, I would say this to you too. How about Britton Covey? I mean, could there be a role in the postseason?
So, yeah, he's out for the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So he got moved back to injured reserve. So unfortunately, he's dealing with a shoulder issue. They call it it's more of a nerve thing than anything else. So unfortunately, he's out for the season. And we'll see. That's for next year. But, unfortunately, how this league moves quickly. If Benaiah Smith proves that he can return punts, all of a sudden, you could be looking in a different direction, unfortunately, for Brett.
Absolutely.
John, what for the organization? What's the approach to a game like this? Like, you go into the preseason games and you're like, okay, maybe a player makes a play that you feel better about keeping him around for special teams, or like in the case of Eli Ricks a couple of years ago, he had a big interception and then people wanted to keep him on the roster. You don't have that now because you're going into the playoffs. What's the organizational approach to this game, or is it literally just go out, play the game between the lines for 60 minutes, and get the hell out of there?
Well, they want to get out as healthy as possible, even with the backup players, but they are going to try to win the game. They're going to try to win the game. I mean, that's just the nature of this organization. They're just going to try to win it with the players they do have in uniform. So it becomes more difficult from that perspective. But yeah, Nick Sirianni's been hyper-focused on that message that we're trying to win this football game first and foremost. So it isn't just, all right, whatever. They're going to be disappointed if they can't find a way to win the game. And that sort of makes the Eagles, or this sort of group, since Jeffrey Lurie has been here. It's all about winning first, but I always say, and if you look at across the street, Wells Fargo Center here in South Philadelphia, the Sixers are famous for tanking back in the day. Players never tank. Organizations tank. Executives tank. Coaches don't tank. Players don't tank. So these guys will be out there trying to win the game.
Hey, John, can you give us any update? Because, I haven't heard anything if Hurts is out of the protocol, if he's still in the protocol. I mean, I saw Joe Burrow last night take a face plant himself. They cleared him right away. They put him in there. And I've heard you say this, and I agree with you. The science of this whole thing is often weird, and it goes to particular organizations on how they handle this, because the neurologist, again, there's a team neurologist, and then the league spotter sees you, and then you go from there with that. I don't think you can manipulate a concussion protocol, because to me, if you start manipulating that like you do the injury report, I'm not going to start believing the protocol here. So is he
Well,
hurt more than you think, John? I mean,
no,
is he still in it?
I would say, Dan, start believing you can manipulate the protocol, because you can manipulate the protocol.
So your people would manipulate a protocol that's a neurologist with a player's brain with CTE and all those cases that are still out there. That's a slippery slope, John.
It is what it is. That's why the NFL doesn't want to talk about it. But in the case, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. In the case of Joe Burrow, he was not diagnosed with a concussion, so he's just being checked for a concussion. He passed the initial test. He's never in the protocol. Jalen Hurts had a diagnosed concussion, so he's in the protocol. Now, when you're in the protocol as a player, the Eagles didn't want him to play this week. They didn't want him to play. They weren't going to play. They weren't going to play him. So
they kept him in it.
As a player, you can just say, hey, turned on the light this morning, was a little sensitive to the light. They're going to keep you in phase 2. And then you go to next Wednesday. If next Wednesday rolls around and he's not on the practice field, then you can start to be concerned. I fully expect him to be out on the practice field on Wednesday. It might be Tuesday, depending. They're not going to play on Saturday, but I guess it's a possibility. But they're probably going to play on Sunday. So if he's not on the practice field Wednesday, then he can start panicking. Otherwise, and all indications, there's no panic in this building. There's no panic with the team. He's going to be back.
That's right, John. Light and noises. That's the precursor to how the organization would look at that. Because, again, and like you said, and I've heard you say it on the show on Birds 365 numerous times, that, hey, man, it's a freaky way of science, and it's a weird science because it's kind of like a feel. And to know what the guy really has and what kind of grade he has, there's still so much science that has to be resolved in this thing here to determine on what a true concussion is right now. So it is a slippery slope.
Yeah, and I don't want to, because people get upset by that, but he did get diagnosed with a concussion. But I'm just saying, when you're in this specific protocol, you can manipulate it if you want to. Malcolm Jenkins told me that long ago. Good and bad, you can manipulate it from a perspective of trying to, try to fool doctors that when you do have a concussion, and versus trying to slow things down, which is the case here. I would not be concerned. I'll just say I would not be concerned about Jalen Hurts.
D-Money says panic. We got McKee. Did you guys forget? We're good, man. No matter what happens, good stuff. D-Money. John, where are the Giants at coming into this game, man? Are they resting players? Like, are they playing everybody? I mean, they're 3-13. They don't give a shit.
They're resting who? What do they have?
I know. But just for the sake of the conversation, for the sake of the pregame show, John.
Where they're at, I'm looking at the field right now. They're on the field. So, who cares about 3-13 versus 13-3? The Giants have a lot of problems. They did play well last week. Drew Lock had a big game. They already sort of ruined their opportunity to have the number 1 overall pick. They can fall, I believe, all the way to 9 if they win this game.
Yeah.
I'm not just sure if they want to win, want to lose. Same thing I said with the Eagles. The players will play to win. And Drew Lock is, I'm going to whisper this. Drew Lock is probably better than Tanner McKee. So,
Oh, whoa.
He's got more experience. I don't know if he's better, John.
Holy cow. When did we go there? Hey, I hope this last week, Eagle fans are legendary for giving people the raspberry, and Jerry Jones took it last week big time. I pray to God John Mara's there, and John Mara showed up, and we could just give everybody a kudo out there to tell them thank you very much for Barkley, because
they get a lot of that. I saw one of the sort of ticket broker things had a big thing out there saying thank you for Saquon. That's been a storyline all season. John Mara wanted Saquon back. It's not John Mara. So, that's more of a Joe Shane. And look, I've defended the Giants from, what is Saquon doing for this 3-13 Giants team? Maybe they won 5-6 games. It was a smart decision for them to go in a different direction. It was a smart decision for the Eagles to get Saquon Barkley. Both of those two things can be true, and they are true. They tried it for 6 years. They haven't built up the type of team. They don't have the type of organization that can take advantage of a running back, which is kind of a luxury in the modern NFL. They got to fix their offensive line. They got to fix their defensive front, their defense as a whole. They got to fix a lot of things before they worry about having a top-tier running back. And again, they have 6 years of proof of that because they've had that running back for 6 years, made the playoffs once, and their winning percentage was atrocious over those 6 years.
All right, John, what's the approach from a football standpoint today in this game? You passing all over the yard with Tanner Montana? What are we doing out there today, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, it's, I think it's going to be a big Will Shipley day. I think Will's going to get the football a lot, both as a runner and as a receiver. Kenny Gainwell probably is going to start, but I would imagine they wouldn't play him a lot because Kenny's a big part of their team on a week-to-week basis. So I think Will Shipley's going to be the guy. It's funny because I was talking to Tanner this week, and he was talking about, and he kind of caught himself because he knew what he said. He basically said, boy, there's a big difference when you're playing with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith versus insert names. And unfortunately, and he called it being the point guard, and I asked him, yeah, it's like having a 40-point scorer instead of a 15-point scorer. And he went, yeah, but then he called himself. He's back to having a 15-point scorer. So you can distribute the football, but
15 might be generous.
Yeah, if the guy can't score 40, you're probably not putting it in the bucket. So no A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith. Maybe you get a little bit of Dallas Goedert. Have you guys seen Dallas Goedert, rookie? Haven't seen Dallas Goedert out there. So, no 40-point scores.
Hey, John, let me ask you this off-topic question here because I brought this up on our show, and I want to ask you this here. Now that you're looking at evaluating maybe the backups and guys you want to look at moving forward with, in this offseason here, how he's going to be going into his final contract season, 2025, at the end of the 2025 season, his contract is up. And most people, including the organization, they really don't like anybody that they really value going in, and they like to get ahead of the curve here. And I know Nick's contract is up as well. What do you think will be the major priority going into the offseason when everything is said and done? Howie's contract first or Nick's contract? And how do you think they'll handle that? Or will that just be one of those, just like Jalen Hurts' contract? He was one of the quietest $250 million deals I ever saw in my life. Will it go down something like that?
Yeah, I think they'll keep them in concert and extend both the same amount of years because you always want that relationship. A lot of people talk with the Giants, maybe Brian Daboll's back, but Joe Shane isn't. To me, it's like both or none. You want to have that twosome working together hand in hand. So, I know there's that. It's not really a report, but Tony Pauline was speculating about someone trying to steal Howie Roseman away from Jeffrey Lurie. It's not going to happen. And Nick Sirianni's done enough. The one thing about coaching, look, if you do what you do, and Zander, Dan, what went on this week at fans being upset about not getting the rushing record, and now it's turned into, oh, you better win if you rest these guys and you miss out on history, blah blah blah. And if you go out and get beat by Green Bay 40-3, well, then everything's on the table.
Yep.
But that's not going to happen. This is a good team, just a matter of how good, how far they're going to be, how far they're going to go. So Nick Sirianni's done enough to get an extension.
Johnny Mac, you think the Birds win this football game today before we let you go, brother?
No, I'm picking the Giants. I mean,
even with the draft thing, I think they're going to find a way to lose it on purpose in some way, John.
John's not sold on Tanner Manning. That's why.
Well, they won last week. And they played well last week, as I mentioned. They already ruined that. Brian Daboll's trying to save his job. The last way you can save your job is lose to a bunch of backups to your division rival, who you also lost Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think they're going to be fighting to win this game. And if they don't win this game and they're fighting to win this game, boy, they're even worse than we thought. We think they're pretty bad.
Absolutely.
Johnny Mac, good stuff, man. Appreciate you joining. We'll talk to you on the halftime show and the post-game show after the much-anticipated Week 18 matchup. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, John.
Good stuff there from John McMullen, live from Lincoln Financial Field, joining us on the show.
Let me ask you this. Who again would you want to see in the opening round of the playoffs, Washington or Green Bay? And by the way, you've played both.
Yeah.
And you've played, obviously, the Commanders twice.
Beat both, lost to the Commanders once. I'd like to say the Commanders because I think I like the matchup of Vic Fangio versus a rookie quarterback in a playoff moment. Jordan Love's a little bit more battle-tested in terms of playoffs. Obviously had the big playoff win last year versus the Cowboys. Maybe that doesn't say much because the Cowboys are the Cowboys in the playoffs and they never win in the playoffs. And Dak Prescott's a choke artist when the lights get the brightest. But he does have that experience under his belt, which might make him a little bit more prepared to come into a place like Philadelphia, in January and play that game. So I think I'd probably lean Commanders, but either one, fuck them both. We're gonna roll over both of those teams.
Well, I don't want to play the better quarterback because to me,
who's the better quarterback in your opinion?
I know that's what I'm asking. I mean, Daniels or Love. I mean, remember something too. You could go down the same light here with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, the Packers are going to kind of remind me a little bit of the Buccaneers. They get a look at you, and then they get you like the Bucs did last year and this year because you got pretty good coaches on that staff. I think LaFleur is a hell of a play-calling head coach. I like Matt LaFleur. Now, I think their defense is a little spotty, especially in the secondary. I think Washington is a more complete team than Green Bay, believe it or not. But I think Green Bay's got the better quarterback. And I think Daniels is a fine player. And I like how much I love the kid. But has he really experienced anything that he's going to experience going into? I mean, look, the SEC probably has prepped him a lot. But playoff football versus SEC football, dude, that's a big mountain climb to roll in there. Where Love has gone on the road like a place like Dallas and mopped them up. And I don't think the lights would be too big for him rolling into Lincoln Financial. That would give me just a little bit more of a pause. I wouldn't want to play Green Bay. I'd probably want to play Washington.
I think in order for that to happen, the Cowboys would have to beat the Commanders today, and the Packers would have to beat – I think the Packers play the Bears, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So it looks like it's going to be Green Bay because I think Green Bay should handle business, and I think the Commanders should handle business in that regard. And by the way, a lot of those Commanders people are – as much as they like to talk a big game, hey, we're better than the Birds, Jay Daniels is better. They all don't want to play the Eagles in round one. They'd rather play the Rams or the Bucks or whoever it is that they're going to play if they get the 6th seed. So,
hey, I'll tell you what screws the whole NFC playoffs off is tonight's loser. You're going to play a 14-win team in that 5-hole, and get this. So you're either going to get Detroit or Minnesota rolling in to Tampa or to I think Los Angeles. So you're going to have to play one of those teams coming in off the road, a 14-win team. And would we not agree? Minnesota and Detroit are pretty hot football teams. I mean, both of them are pretty hot. I got a feeling Detroit's going to struggle today. You know why? Short work week. They've got massive losses on that side of the ball. And what a story it would end up being, Zander, if Sam Darnold in his year this year, instead of a run like Foles had with 4 games, he goes on a season roll where he wins home field advantage and puts up all those numbers. You talk about a guy who's going to make a lot of money in the offseason, and Minnesota's going to either pony it up or not. He's going to be a hot commodity in the offseason.
I think he's going to get $50 million. I do. I think he's played good enough to get the $50 million.
He's going to get a contract kind of like Cousins got, around that $48 million mark.
Remember, the $50 million sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Like if you get $50 million as a quarterback, you're probably the 10th or 12th highest paid quarterback. And I think back to last year or even just in the last 12 months, right? Dak Prescott got the big contract. He's at $60 million. So that's top of the market, which, by the way, Dak didn't deserve. And then Daniel Jones got $40 million. So that's kind of the bottom of the market for signing an extension for a starting quarterback. So I think he's going to come in right in between. That's where I think Purdy's going to come in too, right around $50 million.
I do. I mean, it's I tell you what, these playoffs are going to be very interesting.
I'm taking the Lions tonight, though, by the way.
I'm taking the Lions?
Yeah.
Is it in Detroit or in Minnesota?
It's in Detroit.
Detroit probably favors them a lot more. Boy, I tell you, man, I think you're taking them because also you love the coach and you love how
I do. I like Dan Campbell.
I do too. I love the coach.
I'm a big Dan Campbell fan, and I think we can beat them. I think we're going to beat them if we play them in the playoffs. But you got to give him credit, man. He has his team ready to go every single week. That team's fighting hard. That's a good football team, and it's not hard to tip your cap to what they've been able to do over there in Detroit. So pretty good stuff from
We have not really broached it enough. What about missing on history today?
Yeah, it sucks. It's ridiculous, I think. It's stupid. And I'm tired. I'm honestly so sick of people telling me that, oh, my God, there's a bigger fight. Okay, great. Who cares? Are you going to get the record and then not go for the bigger picture goal?
Is it this part of the fight?
Exactly. We've been debating this for months, and I know I've teetered on this. I've gone back and forth on this because a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, yeah, they're not going to play him in the last game. I knew it was going to get to this point where week 18 might not matter for the Birds, and I said, oh yeah, we'll rest them. You're on the brink of history, man. You know what I really feel like though. As an Eagle fan, a fan of the team, it makes a lot of sense. All right. You're gearing up for a Super Bowl run. You need all your guys to be healthy. As a fan of the team, it makes sense. But as a guy who, anybody in their own life, anybody listening right now, any Big Sills, anybody that can relate to striving for greatness in life or trying to, like, I'm new to, in the last year, I started doing shows. I'm trying every day to get better at what I do. If you work hard in life, if you have a business in life, whatever it is, you strive for greatness, right? Saquon Barkley's been working for something like this his entire career, through college, through high school, through the pros, through the New York Giants, even through this season, right? And then you get to a point where you can solidify yourself with the greatest players that have ever walked planet Earth. And they say, no, you can't do it. Like, I get it from an Eagle fan, but if I'm Saquon Barkley, man, that hurts. That hurts, man, to rob. That's almost like being robbed of legacy, of history, and from a guy that in my own life, I try and strive for greatness in everything I do. I don't always succeed, but I try. I can understand why that would suck so bad for Saquon Barkley, who's really on the brink of reaching that milestone.
For me, it's about, like you said, legacy here. People don't remember the Miami Dolphins for winning a Super Bowl. They remember the Miami Dolphins because they were undefeated. When you're talking about things that people do, especially in a sport like this, and I know, again, that's team when you're talking about being undefeated, but when you're memorable like that and you put your stamp and you put your footprints in the sand,
right?
As I like to say, and Pat Riley likes to say, Pat Riley gave me that line. Hey, man, if you're going to do something, put your footprints in the sand, man. Go out there and make sure you do it. I guarantee you, man, I used to love talking to Pat Riley about greatness. You know what he used to do? Okay, in the middle of Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Boston, I asked him one day when he was on my show in Miami, he was writing on a chalkboard. I go, writing on one of those boards here, and I go, what did you tell your team, Magic, and the rest of those guys like Kareem? He goes, I just had a word on there. Will. He goes, have the will to be a champion. You can't be a champion when you feel like it. You have to be a champion every day of your life. Zander, if you practice being a champion, you'll be a champion one day. You can't just turn
I know
that
what you
on
mean.
and off.
It's an approach to everything. There's an old saying I love that I use all the time. I love this saying. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
Right. And you approach, you attack greatness in everything you do. And ultimately that's the best way to go about it. But look, what are you going to do? It's over now. They decided to go this route. I'm not going to kill them for it because I understand it. I don't agree with it. Right. You can understand it and not agree with it. I would have done it differently, more out of respect for what Saquon's accomplishing as a player. You know, I can't look past that, Sills. I really can't. Think about that for a second, though. You're talking about 100+ years of NFL football. You're talking about guys that have come through this league that people talk about 40, 50 years after they're done playing. And Saquon Barkley, right here in 2024, now 2025, had a chance to solidify himself, not with them, above each and every one of them.
Jim Brown.
It kind of sucks. It really does suck. I get it, like I said. So if you're in the chat, we have a bigger, I get it. You're not telling me anything I don't know. I understand. We're fighting for the Super Bowl.
I tell you what, if they win the Super Bowl flat out and they pass on this record, which they're going to do, I think there's a little bit of empty calorie in that where I'd be like this. Why couldn't we have it all? I mean,
like what you said about the memorable. Like, I like what you said. Like, 17, what was the memorable part of the 17 team?
They next man up.
Yeah, next man up, Nick Foles. Right, that was every Super Bowl winner has a memory, or and I think.
Don't you agree that 17 team had these moments? Wentz goes down, Foles goes in, and then Philly. Right. Isn't that memorable on that team? On that set, doesn't that kind of put that team in a different light like this? How about this? If there is a game and if there is a team that represents your city better than anything, isn't that everything in life that Philadelphians are all about? Next person up, next guy up, go to work, do your job. And that team was a do your job kind of team. Okay. It wasn't this team is way more gifted and way more ready to have all these stars. Sometimes, Zander, guess what? Having all the stars on the team, that delivers championships. Remember, if they don't win this Super Bowl, does this team go down, in your opinion, like that dream team of a couple years ago?
I think the most memorable part of this season, if they don't win the Super Bowl, will be Saquon Barkley, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe the defense. I think there's a couple things you can take
from the passing game.
First time we've had a number one overall defense since what, 1991?
Yep, since Gang Green.
Yeah, so
and the passing game, question marks. I mean, 2903 and 18 touchdowns with those type of talents. After watching Lamar Jackson, don't tell me you can't do both. Because I saw two guys. I saw a guy with 4,200 passing yards last night and 41 touchdowns, and another guy with 1,900 rushing yards. Don't tell me that can't be done.
Good stuff, Big Sills. Let's get to a couple super chats here. Appreciate everybody in the chat, by the way. What's up, Flex, Bob Brown, Dotson here, DeAnthony Harris, Anthony Mott. Appreciate all of you guys, man. Hit that like button for us on the show today. Guys, we're closing out the NFL regular season.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it, Sills. I feel like yesterday we had our first freaking postgame show, like literally, and I'm like, what the hell? And now we're going into the playoffs, but I'm jacked up, man. I'm ready to go for the playoffs. It's going to be a great run for this team. Hopefully they can make a big run here. Nick Gonzalez says 2 concussions equals 1 month with no hurt. So I guess you're saying if he got another one, he'd be out a month in the protocol?
Yeah, that's the protocol.
Yeah, so if he missed another one. By the way, an update on that. Jeff Kerr did put out a report today that he participated today in practice in a walkthrough. Now, that doesn't mean you cleared the protocol, but there's 5 stages of the NFL concussion protocol, right? And Sal Palantonio said this on our night show on Thursday. The fact that he wasn't practicing at all last week showed you he was kind of in those early stages still. He was at a walkthrough today, which means he could be clear now at any moment. He's probably in those latter stages of the protocol. So good stuff for Jalen Hurts. He did participate in a walkthrough today for the Birds. So all good on that front. Anthony Amato checks in. He says, Hurts is coddled, too busy planning his wedding rather than passing game. Hurts better show out in the playoffs. Well, that's big speculation there, my guy. But you're right about him showing out in the playoffs. He got to do that.
Women weaken knees. Remember that.
Not these knees, Big Sills. My knees ain't weakened. Rodney Burton says, this is a real team fans game. Looking forward to seeing Shipley and Goddard. Also from my family to all of yours, Merry Xmas and Happy New Year's. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Rodney. I appreciate you, brother. he's looking forward to seeing Shipley and Goddard. I don't know about Goddard. You think Goddard will get some reps today?
I do. I think Goddard will probably get a couple reps. I don't know if he'll play a full quarter, but I would expect them to throw him out there to get him out there for a couple series, 2, 3, 4 series, something in there maybe, and then you sit his ass. But then again, like John said, they're pretty limited at that position. Hey, do you see your boy from Florida State jump in that role too? I mean, I don't know because, dude, don't they only have 2 guys suited up for this ball game, Calcaterra and Goddard, heading into this game at tight end?
The other guy got hurt. The other guy got
so you're limited there.
He got hurt.
You're limited there.
Yeah, John said that. It's a good point. Josh Herman checks in. Josh, thank you, brother. Rodney, by the way, thank you, man. Josh Herman says, what do you guys want next week? I'm leaning toward Green Bay just because of lack of familiarity versus playing Washington, who we've already seen twice. I think that's to me, it's kind of a toss-up, honestly. I feel good about the Eagles in both of those matchups.
It's funny you say that. I just went, I feel like flipping on that thing and going, I'd rather see Green Bay than Washington because, okay, how about this? Who do you think is a better team, Washington or Green Bay? Take the quarterback.
I think you might be right that Washington might be a little more well-rounded, and I did not think I'd be saying that in Week 18. But we had Joe Theismann on a couple of months. You did on your show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how much roster turnover there was and how much the guys that they brought in. He said it was like 40 or 50% of the starters are new this year. So, and how good those guys have been. They've really turned around a lot of areas of that team. So, like, they're not a bad defense. They're not a bad offense. They're kind of
linebackers are great.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think probably the Packers are better, but I feel like the Washington team has been better and has gotten more out of their talent, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, I think they're just more balanced on both sides of the football. And I think their special teams and their quarterback is playing great football. So I look at Green Bay's defense and go, it's a question mark for me on their defense. Like, how good but when I watch Washington can play defense because obviously Dan Quinn.
Yeah. The other part is this. JT Philly says, I'd love to send Washington packing. There is a little bit of an element of it's fun to send a division rival home. Get the fuck out of here. You're from the Lincoln Financial Field. Go the fuck home, Washington.
Hey, add the other dynamic. Josh Harris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Add that little tidbit in there too.
You're right. There are people that definitely care about that. Good stuff. Appreciate all the super chats. Sydney Family checks in. What's up, Sydney? He says, Giants trying to upgrade and get Bradbury back. Oh, God.
Hey, what's the latest on him? I mean, he's just for the year.
He's on the injured reserve. They stashed him. That's what they did.
For what?
They didn't want it. I don't know, man. I don't know. They didn't want to move on from him. I don't really get it, but that's what they decided to do. This Howie's world, and we're just living in it, my guy.
Hey, I heard something from a friend of mine at the Inquirer that said one of the reasons and one of the major issues, this goes back to Joe Banner. And believe me, I had an education from about 5 of the Inquirer columnists this last week, obviously for obvious reasons with Angelo on Friday, but they told me that the number one priority that Joe Banner and Howie Roseman have, and the owner makes it a priority, is cap space. That is a number one priority. And hey, I didn't realize it, Zander. That is a favorite of the owner of the team. He would rather pay Bradbury the $11 million on his salary than pay the $4 million in cap hit. That is that's what makes Howie Roseman the best general manager right there. He's what that owner does.
Yeah,
we kill that owner a lot, but that is marvelous on what
he does some good things. He does do some good things. Nick Marchetti checks in and he says, Daniels is better than Love right now. Give me Green Bay. I don't disagree, Marchetti. I think Love has a really high upside, but sometimes you watch him, he turns into a pumpkin, dude. Like, you're like, what is going on? And then sometimes you watch him and you're like, holy shit, he's got some real raw talent. He can't seem to piece it all together consistently right now, though.
But Xander, doesn't it come out at you like this, though, when you're a rookie like that? The first game, it wasn't very good. The second game, he made a lot of adjustments. Maybe it's things that he's never seen before in the NFL, and he gets a second look at you. He upgrades his game, and he picks his game up. I think it's got a lot to do with experiencing the NFL for the first time. Because every time, when I saw him in the second game, now Hurts' injury had a lot to do with the ball being turned back over to Washington for them to be able to win that game. But I'll tell you what, man, I thought he got the better of Vic in that ball game. because I thought he learned a lot from that first game.
He did. It's just hard. That game is such a hard one for me to think about because you created 5 turnovers. Now credit to Jaden. He kept coming, man. And then he obviously sealed the game with a big touchdown throw late in the game. So, yeah, it's one of those games. It's a weird one, but we'll see what happens. Sydney family checks in, a couple more super chats, and then we'll wrap up, get our final predictions here. So appreciate everybody watching the pregame show, man. Week 18, if you're a football fiend like we are, you're watching this game. You don't care who's playing.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, I'm not watching the game. I'm watching it. I don't give a shit who's out there.
No doubt, man. Wait a minute. I never miss football. I watch Canadian football at times. I don't care.
So many of these things left. I'm watching every game that comes on the TV. I'll be really locked in on the Sunday night game tonight. That should be a good one. Sydney family says, imagine one being the best that ever played. Yep. And it's a tough thought, man, to think about robbing Saquon of that title. No, but it is what it is. It is a team game, so I get it. Marchetti says, excited to see Shipley, a.k.a. CMC 2.0 run today. You got to be kidding me, Marchetti.
Oh, man. Hey, Zander, over-under on turnovers today. Over 6? Both teams?
6?
Both teams combined.
6? I'm going under 6.
I say 3
I don't think we have enough playmakers on the field to create that many turnovers. And the Giants are stinkers. I think our second unit is better than the Giants for team. I think we're winning this game because we're better.
Better organization.
Better team. We got all backups on the offensive line. And I still like our offensive line better.
Oh, I do too. By the way, the backups in Philly could probably start in New York.
Yeah, John threw out that he thinks Drew Lock's better than Tanner Manning. I don't say it. I don't think so. Give me Tanner Manning, Tanner Montana, whatever the hell you want to call.
Wait a minute. Drew Lock did beat you guys last year.
I know. You're never going to let us forget that.
No,
please, for the love of Pete, can Sills forget that one day? Bob Brown checks in. He says, Daniels is a rookie playing with house money and no expectations. Plus, his last experience with Philly is a win. That makes Daniels dangerous.
Yeah, man. No, listen.
Speaking of house money, you know who's on house money today?
I'll tell you what, man, that kid's going to be a force to reckon with in the NFC East.
Wait,
that team's going to get – do you know Washington has a ton of cap space next year too?
Yeah, they do. They're in a good spot. Washington's in a good spot. And then the GM has been pretty good, so he might use that cap space properly. But speaking of house money, you know what I was thinking about that we didn't talk about in this pregame show and we should have? Is Kellen Moore playing with a little house money today? Hear me out. He's got the #1 rushing attack. He's been rushing the ball all year, limited to 15 to 20 pass attempts. This is a pass-happy offensive coordinator. This is a guy that loves throwing the ball. This is a guy who was a coordinator for Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. Is he going to come into this game saying, listen, Tanner Manning, we're going to be slinging that ball all over the yard today?
If Tanner Manning goes for 345 yards and 3 touchdowns, I will be demanding a quarterback controversy come Monday if that guy throws for 345 against stiffs with stiffs. If he does that, we have a problem, Houston, Monday on the Big Sills National Football Show.
Dude, if he puts up 345 with Jahan Dotson, I will freak out. I will not push back on you. 2 more supers, then we'll get our predictions. Nick Branchetti says, that was a joke. Don't worry. Good stuff, Nick. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. Josh Herman says, you going to watch KC check in on our ex Big Z? Oh, yeah, I'm definitely. Is that what time is that game on today? 4:25?
Yeah, that's a later game.
All right, so we'll be on the post game show, but I'll keep it tuned up. So that'll be good stuff. All right, Sills, what are you predicting for this game?
I got 26-24 Birds. I just think it's a bunch of backups playing in this ball game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout because I don't think there's blowout talent on the field on both sides of the football. Yeah, Dotson. I mean, really, man, what's he going to do? 120 yards and 3 catches? I don't think so. I'm going to look. And then after that, who do you got? Anus Smith? And you got a couple other guys.
Wait. Let's set it. Wait.
Is it Aeneas or Anus?
Anais. But anyway.
Anais. Thank you.
For the sake of Big Sills and him dubbing Jahan Dotson. Let's set the over under for Dotson today at 65 yards. That's pretty heavy.
65.
Is he going over or under?
Oh my God, he's going so under. He'll need a snorkel. Are you?
Yo, if he gets over 65, I need at least 10 Jahan Dotsons out of you on Monday's show. I need at least 10 of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. We got to give a Jahan Dotson jersey away.
Well, you got 26-24. I'm going 27-17. I think Giants get a late touchdown, and it's really more of a blowout. And I think Tanner McKee is going to look good today, but not that good. Going to look good, but not good enough.
348 and 3 touchdowns. Quarterback controversy Monday morning with Tanner Brady.
Lucius says Love is a slightly better version of Dak. That might be a good comp, actually. It might be a good comp. All right, let's set the over-under at 260. No, that's too high. That's too high. 215 for Tanner Manning.
Over.
But you got under for Jahan Dotson, so who's catching all these passes?
Backs. Shipley and Gainwell. And
Goddard
a little bit, too. Goddard and Katera.
All right, we'll see what happens. Big Sales, great pregame show, man. That was a lot of fun. I thought it was not going to be so fun with this type of game, but we always figure out how to have a little bit of fun with the great people.
There's one thing you got to remember about. There's no layups. I don't give a shit who's playing.
We don't rest starters on JAKIB. We don't rest fucking starters.
Wait, what do you think we're going to do? Give you Harry and put him out here because the Eagles are playing.
We don't need to throw
We're going to put Harry on here.
All right. Well, that's pretty good show. Hope everybody enjoys the game. We appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching. Got a good crowd here for a Week 18 game. Enjoy it, man. Week 18, and then we're on to the playoffs, which will start next week. So that should be a good one. And we'll see if they can contain Malik Neighbors, as Niall brings up. It's a good point. He had a big game last week. So we will see what happens. Big Sales, great show, man. We'll talk to you in the postgame show.
Got you guys. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming aboard. Hit that like button. We appreciate it. We'll see you on the post.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
We noticed that there was mold creeping into our basement about a year and a half ago, and wanted to make sure that we were getting rid of the problem permanently. We actually reached out to several different contractors to get it resolved, and actually 2 of them recommended DryTech to us as a long-term solution. Other than the noise factor, we wouldn't even know that there was work being done on the basement level. It's really been a clean process for us.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an Audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
EAGLES. Eagles.